Hey guys, so I can't believe I'm about to create an informative video. I've always wanted to do this, but with school starting and me just being a little bit nervous, I procrastinated just a tiny bit. But I'm extremely excited about it, just because I've had a lot of my personal friends like ask me to create one, and so just with their help and me just exploring my comfort zone a little bit, I'm ready to do this. So let's do this. So one of the important topics to understand about plastic is that there's actually 7 different types of plastics. There's 7 different kinds, and they're actually all labeled underneath a plastic product. So let's say like you're going to Walmart and you just bought a container of strawberries. If you look underneath the plastic container, it'll have a label, and it looks like a triangle, but it's very hard to see because it's the same color as the plastic. But within that triangle, you'll see a little number, and that number will help you understand the toxic levels involved with the plastic, if it's biodegradable, and if we should be reusing it with more than one use. So, and I've personally, I've always wondered what the actual differences between these 7 different types of plastic are. So with that, I did a lot of research, and I came out with just some very basic knowledge to not only help myself out, but hopefully you guys can start understanding the different types of plastics, and hopefully it'll make you be a little bit more environmentally conscious after all, because that's what we're wanting. And so with that, let's just start with number 1, and we'll go all the way to 7. Plastic number 1, it's called PET or PET. It stands for polyethylene terephthalate. This number it's one of the most recycled plastics known, and if any city is going to start a recycling center, they're typically going to start off with just doing 1s and 2s, because those are the easiest to shred and like make into new products essentially. Plastic number 1, it is considered, one of the safer plastics, but we are also hesitant on that just because you have risk of toxic leakage into it if there's a lot of heat put on that plastic. And plastic number 1 is known for a lot of bacteria growth if it's been sitting outside in the heat for a long time. Another thing, PET plastic, it's intended for just a one-time use just because of that bacteria risk. And so even though like you're cleaning that plastic out every time, you're really not fully cleaning it out the best of your ability, because in order to really clean out a plastic number 1, you would have to use a lot of dangerous chemicals to clean all that contamination out of it. Only 25% of bottles are recycled in the United States, so with that, let's just go to number 2. It's called HDPE, which stands for high density polyethylene. It's considered one of the 3 safe plastics due to that lower risk of leakage of the toxins. This number is the second most recycled material, like I said, with the 1s and 2s. Most states only recycle the 1s and 2s just because it's so easy to regenerate into a new product, especially when it comes to those chemical levels and exposing your workers to it. What's nice about HDPE plastic is they are very durable, and so when you're leaving them outside in your car for a long time, it's under that heat or freezing temperatures, it's because of that durability, it's not going to maybe leak as badly. But just because it's considered one of the safer plastics, it doesn't mean we should be using it 24/7. So with that, plastic number 3, it's called vinyl It can also be called V or PV chloride. Vinyl, it's rarely recycled just because of the way it's made. It's made with a lot of harsh chemicals, and so you typically don't want to be reusing that as for food use or for child use. This plastic still may contain a lot of phthalates in it, which are linked to numerous miscarriages, and they also contain DEHA, which can be a carcinogen with long-term exposure. DHA is also linked to a lot of bone loss in bone mass and liver problems. So number 3 is considered one of the lesser of the plastics. So you don't really see it often in the grocery stores, but it's just a plastic to keep your eye out for. A lot of recycling centers don't recycle it, but a lot of the recycling programs, on the other hand, are starting to catch on the bandwagon and allowing plastics number 3 to be recycled. The only 1% or less than 1% of PVC plastic is recycled, and although some of PVC is repurposable, we really don't want to be reusing it just because of that food or child use factor. Plastic number 4, it's called LDPE, which stands for low density polyethylene. This plastic is not well known to be picked up by the recycling centers, but some are starting to input into their programs. It is considered one of those 3 safer plastics, and it's found in those squeezable bottles, shopping bags, clothing, carpet. I think it's used in a lot of things, to be honest, and when it's recycled. I'm not a huge expert in plastic number 4, but those are just some of the ways it is recycled. Plastic number 5, it's called PP or polypropylene. This plastic has become more common for that curbside pickup, but it is considered that 3rd safe plastic. But other than that, you can recycle into those yogurt containers, syrup bottles, and medicine bottles. There really isn't much to know about number 5. It's not that common to see in the grocery stores, I would say. Plastic number 6, so that is called polystyrene or PS. We all know polystyrene as styrofoam, and it's one of the most difficult products to recycle, incredibly bad for the environment because it has a hard time breaking down because of the chemicals that are used to create it. When warmed up, styrofoam does have potential to leak a lot of toxic chemicals, so that's, I think, one of the biggest reasons that a lot of recycling centers don't try to recycle it, and it's just not very common too because it's so hard to find a way to reuse it. If you have been keeping up on a lot of environmental impacts happening, there was a young inventor named Ashton. Okay, his name is Ashton Kofer, and he came up with this idea of recycling styrofoam with 2 other members. And what they did was they used carbon that was already in the styrofoam and created an activated carbon within it. And activated carbon, it's used in a lot of water filters today. So by activating that carbon and using small micropores to filter out the contaminants, they were able to take the styrofoam and use it as an activated carbon to not only make the water healthier, but they just found a reusable product for styrofoam. So it's killed 2 stones with 1 bird. The US does produce about 2 billion products of styrofoam right now, and hopefully with this new invention by Ashton and his team, we can help reduce that styrofoam use. Plastic number 7. This is just a mishmash of plastics, and one of the biggest ones that includes is BPA. We typically, you'll start seeing like a lot of bottles, they say BPA free on them. Those are the types of plastic bottles that you are wanting to use if you are trying to reuse a plastic multiple times to drink, just because BPA is known to leak a lot of toxins and chemicals into your water bottles. So just keep an eye out that when you're looking for a reusable method. So I guess with that, the bottom line overall is it's to avoid plastics 3, 6, and 7. While number 1 is considered the safest, like we talked about, we don't want to be reusing it more than once just because of that bacteria growth that we're worried about. Look for plastics 2, 4, and 5. Those are considered the 3 safe plastics to use in terms of animal and human consumption. I guess for me personally, I definitely don't want to sit here and tell you that you cannot use plastic at all. It's a very, very hard thing to do, and it's inevitable almost, just because plastic is in anything and everything almost, and a lot of things that we probably don't even realize that plastic is in, but without the creation of plastic, we wouldn't have a lot of the products and inventions that we do today. So although we are thankful for this product, we definitely want to be environmentally conscious of our usage. So one of the biggest things that I've started doing personally is when I go to restaurants and the server, it's like second nature to just give out straws. Just be considerate and give it back if they give you a weird look. Just tell them why you're giving it back to them. You're trying to be environmentally conscious. And most people are, they're gonna be grateful that you're trying to make an impact. But if they don't know why you're doing it, sit down 2 to 3 minutes, quickly explain, and see if someone can get their manager on board at that restaurant. Because without a word of mouth and without people trying to teach each other, it's never gonna really change. And so in order to change, we have to help each other out. I remember I went to a Vietnamese restaurant, and the person who I explained it to, he didn't understand my language after I explained it to him. So he had to get someone else to understand what I was saying, and sometimes that can be a little bit embarrassing because you are putting yourself out there a little bit more. But if you're really wanting to have an impact on your community, those are just great little steps to start out doing. But yeah, thank you so much for listening in. Hopefully you learned a little bit of something, and let me know if you guys want to hear something else. Thanks.